Welcome everyone who is joining in. We're going to take a few minutes before we start. It's great to see everyone joining in. As everyone's aware, we are doing a series of episodes for machine learning. We had our first episode last week with Karthikeyan. And this week we have Sai, who's going to be taking us through 5 steps on how we master our machine learning career transition. Just to start off and kick off this session, we are going to release an intro poll. This is just for us to understand your profile and to understand what is the outcome you're looking for from today's session. So right across the scene, I think you're going to see I just launched a poll. So I think you can now start voting. Brilliant. I can see people engaging and responding. Sai, can you see the responses on the poll?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, I can see it.
Brilliant. Just touching our 200th attendee. Great to see so many joining in. Just gonna re-say that again. We're going live with episode 2 of our session for machine learning this week. We have them weekly on Wednesdays from 7 to 8 p.m. At the end of the session, I'll also be giving information on the next week's episode, which we're going to be having with Pradipta Mishra, who's the head of AI and ML at L&T Infotech. The session to register for that will be shared with you later. But today we're going to be starting with 5 steps to transition your career into machine learning. I hope you all are excited for this session. We're going to start in a minute or so. I can see already 70% of those have voted and put in their domain and experience. Great to see your participation with us. So we're going to start off this session for the first 40 minutes or so with Sai, who will be taking us through how the 5 steps that he suggests that we use to transition our careers. The last 15 minutes is going to be an open forum for a Q&A with Sai, where we're going to, all your career related questions or any questions that you have in terms of how do you transition, what do you do, where can you solve more problem statements, those sorts of questions we will be taking around 7:40, 7:45. And then at around 8 o'clock, we also will have another open Q&A with our program managers from machine learning, who's at Upgrad, Midushi Jaiswal, who will be joining us. And there again, we'll have a further career counseling session with her. That will be another 15 minutes. You're free to stay for that if you'd like to. But without further ado, Sai, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Brilliant. So if you have specific questions, everyone, please do add them in the Q&A tab. The recording for this session will be shared. There is no certificate that is going to be provided for these sessions, so please don't ask that on the chat. There are free courses that we have on Upgrad where you can get certifications. The recording will be sent to you on email tomorrow, so do keep a lookout for that. So do ask your relevant questions in the Q&A. Sai will be keeping a tab on that whilst the session is going on. But without further ado, over to you, Sai. Let's begin.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5-step plan to master your ML career transition. So I see already there's a poll being conducted. Let me ask you one more question on similar lines. How many of you belong to the IIM category? So IIM stands for, not that I'm asking you to kind of tell me whether you are from IIM or not. IIM in my description stands for Indian IT Male. Right? So how many of you fall into that category? Majority of you, right? So I actually fall into that category. I pretty much started my career during the recession time, 2008. And during my career, I started with Bank of America as a person who was preventing hacking attacks at Bank of America. And it took me close to 6 to 7 years pretty much to make the transition to the role of a data scientist. right? And it was not easy. It was actually horrible initially, right? Because at that, imagine 2015, 2014, right? At that point of time, machine learning only existed in movies. It never existed in real world. And even if it existed in real world, it was very hard because nobody was around me to kind of tell me what to do. Right, so pretty much everybody was choosing a software engineer profile, getting to a team manager profile, team lead, project lead, and going on site. That's a typical trajectory. Right, and you guys have chosen something different. That's the reason why you're here, right? So in the next 40 minutes, I'm going to share my experiences, that 5-step plan. So every country has a 5-year plan, right? Everyone has a plan these days. Right, so we should also have a plan. And this is the plan that I have pretty much conceptualized after going through multiple hit and misses, right? So that's exactly what we're going to discuss in the next 40 minutes. Okay, so these are the 5 things that I wanted to discuss. First, the most important part of any good plan is the first step, right? So we need to be really, really clear about the first move that we're going to make. And that's the reason why 30% of today's discussion will be centered around the first step, which is what exactly are we transitioning to? What are all the roles that are available, right? And then comes the second step, which is you designing an eye-catching portfolio. What is portfolio? How can it be eye-catching, right? How does it make sense in the context of a machine learning role? We're going to discuss that. And then the biggest roadblock, biggest challenge, right? The hit rate of any data science interview is like close to 4% to 5%. That means if you do 100 interviews, only 5 you're going to actually crack based on data, right? So why is it so hard to actually crack a data scientist interview, and how can you crack it, right? And then we're also going to learn from people who have actually made the transition. There are some people from my network, the people whose stories actually inspired a lot of other aspiring data scientists. We're going to see what was the commonality among these stories and what are the things that we can take away from those experiences, right? And the final thing, the final step, right? So one critical component that is going to determine your success in the world of data science, in the world of machine learning. What is that one thing that you're going to take away from this session also moving forward? Right? As Stefan said, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this discussion, but you can always post your questions in the Q&A tab here, right? And whenever I can take them, I will take them. And I want this to be interactive. Okay? Any questions before we start? All set? All excited to know the 5-step plan? Nobody knows the plan yet, right? Cool. Let's look at the different ML roles that are available. So first step is understanding the different machine learning roles that are available. What do you think are the different machine learning roles apart from data scientists that you think are available? What are the different roles that you think? So you guys know software, Java developer, C++ developer, right? Cloud architect, Android developer, right? So those are the typical roles that we kind of interact on a daily basis, right? What are all the roles that you think are limited to machine learning world? Maybe someone like a data scientist, that is something that everybody knows. Is data scientist the only role in the world of machine learning? Not really, right? You have a bunch of roles. And I can see that in the chat, right? Data analyst, right? You also have consultant, data mining, right? As Ravina is saying, right? BI roles, business intelligence, right? But basically broadly, based on the interviews that I generally do for hiring people into my data science team, right? I categorize them into 5 categories broadly, right? And we'll see what those 5 roles are and how exactly they are categorized the way they're categorized, right? And there is a shortage. Do you guys agree with this? Even in the current pandemic scenario, right? So data science, machine learning, it is always like the final frontier, isn't it? Right? So people always, if you think of even before all this happened, there are problems to solve. There will always be problems to solve. And people who solve problem through data, right, they are the ones who are the most revered. And that's the reason, as you can see here, these are the postings that are happening. And this is the searches that are happening. Like basically people who are looking at making this transition. And based on my experience and also a lot of my colleagues' experience, it's not easy to find a data scientist, right, in India, or not only in India, pretty much across the globe. Why? There are so many openings and they're still just that, openings. They're not being closed. Why? Why do you guys think that is happening? Is it because people are not interested in data science? That's why they're not interested in these openings? As Krishnendu rightly said, right? Data scientist requires a specific set of skills, right? Which are slightly different from the skills that are required to become a software engineer, the skills that are required to become a statistician, the skills that are required to become a mathematician, right? Here, the skill set is slightly different. You're looking at a jack of all trades, right? In our childhood, our parents, everybody said, you should never put your finger in too many things, right? If you are to focus on studies, just focus on studies. Don't go after quizzes, don't go after playing cricket, don't go after modeling and all that stuff, right? But if you're a data scientist, if you want to become a data scientist, you are supposed to be a generalist. And in India, unfortunately at least, generalists are never given importance, isn't it? Even in an organization, right? The more experience you have on a particular language, particular tool, the more important you become. This was prior to 2015. This was the mindset. That is exactly the mindset that led me to actually do an MBA, right? So that's exactly the problem with finding the right people here, because data scientists are supposed to be generalists, jacks. We are looking for jacks, the Jack Sparrows of this world, right? Who knows multiple things, multiple skill set, and combine that information, right? And that's exactly what Michael Dell also said. Those who understand data are the ones who are destined to control the future. They're the ones. Michael Dell is the founder of Dell Systems, right? So he says data is important. So even in this age of uncertainty that is going to dawn upon us with the coronavirus situation, right? You can be rest assured that the positions which will be hot, the positions where there will be huge requirement for skilled labor will always be revolving around AI and machine learning. And maybe the need for these roles has been fast forwarded because of this scenario, right? And this is the worldwide distribution map. If you look at global AI talent pool heat map, this is taken in 2019, I think. And you see majority of the people are kind of holed up in America and in UK, primarily because there they have that support system where it encourages generalists rather than specialists. That's here in the rest of the countries, because of the boom of IT industry, people are pretty much focused on being a specialist. Just learn one language, one tool, right? And that's about it. It's very difficult to find full stack developers. I've been searching for them for the last 6 months, right? It's so difficult to get a full stack developer, at least based out of India, right? So this is the thing that we are planning to change with Upgrade, right? So basically make sure that this gap is getting filled where you have the demand and the supply matching, right? And that brings us to the machine learning pipeline, right? Why do we need so many people? Why is it so complex? If you think of it, if you're looking at building a machine learning pipeline, why you think there are so many roles that are needed to handle data crunching, data munging, is you need people to focus on getting data, right? Using all these database tools, using all these different types of data, big data, unstructured data, structured data, right? And then you also need people to focus on cleaning the data. That this is where you're using Python, R, SAS, all these tools, all these languages to pretty much figure out how to clean this data, automate the cleaning part of it, make sure the data is ready, right? And then you're looking at exploring the data, right? This is where business analytics comes into play. This is what the world has been doing ever since the 1980s, ever since Excel came in. There 40 years, we've been doing exploration of data using business intelligence tools, visualizations, and everything, right? And then this is where from 2016 onwards, it picked up modeling of data, right? So people started finding this skill set where you have to understand machine learning algorithms. You need to pretty much rezig your memory from your childhood, right? The things that you have for long forgotten, linear algebra, trigonometry, statistics, calculus, you have to pretty much hardwire them, make sure that you are remembering all those memories, right? And then kind of model the data, isn't it? Right? So this is where all those Python packages, deep learning packages, everything come into picture. And then the most important skill set among this entire pipeline, which is to tell a story. This is not easy, right? Many people, lot of people know how to build a, let us say, a extreme gradient boosting model, but not many people can explain how is the model behaving, right? What features are important, what features are not important, how to improve this model. Right? Why is the model behaving the way it is behaving? pretty much interpreting the model. That's a skill set, right? If you can you simplify the model's functioning, can you explain it to people, right? This is the hard part, right? And this is where all these tools come in, where you're looking at business domain knowledge. You need to have the domain knowledge. You need to be a person who kind of can formulate hypotheses, can dismantle assumptions, and elucidately, clearly explain the findings in a neat, easy to understand manner. Right? Because the moment you start talking of hypothesis testing in a meeting filled with senior executives, half of them will be asleep and half of them will walk out. Right? So it's your responsibility to make sure that the story is interesting, the story is good. Right? So that's exactly where telling a story as a skill set comes in. And finally, deploying your model. This is a different story altogether. So how do you make sure that machine learning models that you're building on your laptops, on your Jupyter notebooks, how do you transport them and put them in an application like YouTube, in an application like Netflix, right, which is going to serve millions of users, millions of requests coming in, right, millions of data points getting generated every second, every minute. How are you going to manage that infrastructure, right? Now, if you see this pipeline, do you guys agree that there are so many roles that are available in data science? It's not just one role, right? Data scientist is not the only role that you have, right? You have all these different roles, right, that are going to be important, right? So that's exactly the reason why I want you guys to imagine your dream data science team, basically dream team. If you want to, let us say you are imagining you're joining an organization or you're hiring, setting up a data science team. What kind of roles do you think fit in? Right? For inspiration, you can think about the original dream team, the Chicago Bulls team, right, which had Michael Jordan leading that way. Right? So what exactly are the roles that make up a typical dream team, right? So that's where majority of the recruiters also make this mistake that a data scientist can do everything. The entire pipeline that I've shown you, they think a data scientist can do pretty much everything, right? But imagine you having 10 people, 20 people of the same type in your team, right? Even you can't even eat a recipe which has the same ingredients every day, isn't it? Right? Even a recipe needs a multitude of ingredients coming together, right? So this is what many recruiters imagine. One person can do everything. That's the reason if you look at job descriptions, they will ask for 20 years of experience on deep learning. Deep learning itself was started 6 or 7 years back. TensorFlow itself came in 6 or 7 years back, right? And they'll be asking for 20 years of experience on deep learning. That's what happens when you don't know the entire pipeline, when you don't know the entire operations of taking a idea from concept to deployment, right? You need people with specific set of skills. That's exactly where we are going to look at these 5 rules. These are the 5 rules that we're going to focus in today's discussion. Right? What does a data engineer do? There's the first step, right? You need to understand these roles. What does a data science leader do? A decision maker do? What does a data analyst do? And what does a machine learning engineer do? What does a data scientist do? Right? Like just like a cricket team, just like a basketball team, everybody has their own responsibilities. Everybody has their own boundaries. Right? We are going to first explore the boundaries because those boundaries will tell you where to focus when you're making the career transition. And that's the very first step that you need to be really, really clear about. First, let us look at the data engineer. Right? What do you think data engineer does? As the name suggests, he engineers data. Simple, isn't it? He is the guy who is responsible for data. And this guy is not going to typically handle CSV files, right, of 1 KB, 10 KB, 10 MB, right? Those are not the kind of data sets that this data engineer is supposed to handle. This data engineer's problems will be more around, I have a 50 GB data set and it is not going to fit in the RAM. How do I break it out? How do I spread it across a distributed architecture, right? Parallelize the execution. Those are the kind of problems that will keep him awake at night, right? How do I build a pipeline that can handle 10,000 requests per minute? How can I clean this data set without even properly loading it in the RAM, right? And this is the role which is going to be of increasing importance going forward, because anybody can build a machine learning model if you have a clean CSV file, no data missing, nothing, right? But the devil is in the details. If the data is wrong, right? If the data itself is not up to the mark, right? So that's the reason that many people are still not able to predict how coronavirus is going to behave, right? because no one has complete data. No one knows what all the input features that kind of influence whether somebody gets it or not, doesn't get it. It's completely random, isn't it? Right? So that's the reason why data gathering is such an important task, right? And it's going to be a vital thing. So people cannot expect clean data to be coming in. That's one of the first things that I look for when I'm interviewing or setting up a data science team. Are you willing to get dirty with data? Right? Are you somebody who wants data to be gift wrapped and given to you? Or are you someone who can just roll your sleeves up and go ahead and still work out getting data and putting it in a shape that you can use, right? So this is the data engineer role, right? And then comes the data analyst role, right? How many of you guys are business analyst in this group? A lot of you are business analysts, right? So data analyst is a role that a business analyst actually goes in, right? So basically, if you look at it, data analyst is a guy who is more oriented towards the statistics aspect of it, who is more interested in pretty much telling a story from the data, right? He's not somebody who is supposed to be well-versed with programming languages and everything, right? He's more of a statistician. He knows basic programming, right? But the problems that he kind of is dealing with is this, right? What's driving our user growth numbers? How can we explain to manage what is the recent increase? Those salary numbers that you are seeing there, that is annual salary, right? So it's US-based numbers, because Indian-based numbers I was unable to find it. These are US-based numbers, average numbers, right? How can we explain to management the basic interpretation of the machine learning model or statistics, exploratory data analysis, right? So data analysts will be focusing on these things, right? So as you can see here, data science, he's pretty much a mixture of product manager and a business analyst. There's a combination of them. This guy tells data scientists, right, how connected or disconnected their solutions are when it comes to the client side problem. So whenever a client gives a project, the data analyst is the person who is going to define the scope of the project, right? And he's going to coordinate that with the data scientist and make sure that whatever solution the data scientists build actually makes sense. Because sometimes we data scientists can get carried away, isn't it? The moment we see algorithms, the moment we see fancy algorithms like Robert, BERT, I will just straight away go ahead and implement them without really looking at whether they are really solving the problem or not. Because sometimes we kill a mosquito with a machine gun, right? So that's always a problem with the data scientist. And this data analyst is going to make sure that that situation doesn't happen, right? Then you're looking at data scientist. This is a common role. This is a role that everybody knows. That this guy is supposed to be the hero of the movie. That one guy that everybody see as a savior, right? But that is not true in real world. In real world, data scientist is supposed to be the person who is in charge of the pipeline. That's making sure that he's doing the data cleaning part. He's able to perform the right analysis to pick the right input features, right algorithms, right hyperparameters for the algorithms, and interpreting the model. So making sure that whether this, why this model is working, why the other model is working, right? Making sure that he's able to come up with the best possible solution for the problem decided by the data analyst, right? So the problems that keep him awake, right, are this. How many different user types do we really have, right? Can we build a model to predict which products will sell to which users? So this guy is the Sherlock Holmes of data, right? So he's the guy who is going to figure out the solution, looks at all the clues, right? He knows the problem, he looks at all the clues, and he tries to come up with the best possible solution, right? And he is someone who is also supposed to be hands-on, right? As you can see here, the industry expects a data scientist to do programming with Python, Flask, right? He should also be having minimal knowledge about deploying the machine learning model in production environment also, right? So this guy's skill set, this guy's expectations are totally different from a data analyst, right? Data analyst is not supposed to be hands-on, right? Like business analyst, product manager kind of this role, right? Whereas a data scientist is supposed to be hands-on, right? In some startups, what happens is because they cannot afford all these 4 people or 5 people, they expect data scientists to do pretty much everything that we discussed: data engineering, data analysis, data science, building all these models, and also deploying the machine learning models, right? But in big organizations, you have specific roles designated in this way so that the team can function properly. Okay, so you can put your questions in the chat, or Q&A, like either way it works. Right, so there's a question, can I get the recording of this? You will. People who are asking, like, can I transition to data scientist role? Let me tell you, data scientist is a domain agnostic role, meaning no matter which domain you are from, you can still transition to the role of a data scientist. Right, I'm going to cover that in the second step, how you can make the transition. Right, but for now, know that you can make the transition. It's not difficult. At least, if I was able to make the transition, it should be fairly possible for every one of you. Right? And then the final role, before we get into the big one, is machine learning engineer. Now, this guy, his world is going to be completely about the latest technologies out there, like Spark, right? Big data, if you look at it, deep learning, TensorFlow, JS, right? How do I deploy a model, right, that can run in the browser itself, right? How can I integrate a Keras model into a JavaScript app? Right? How can I reduce the prediction time? How can I set up a real-time prediction pipeline, real-time scoring pipeline, right? So this guy is going to suffer if a data scientist poorly codes, right? If he's really poor at coding, if it doesn't follow any coding standards, when the rubber hits the road, pretty much when the model gets into deployment in production environment, right, it completely comes off. And this guy is going to bear the brunt of it. Right? So machine learning engineer is focused, he's supposed to be completely hands-on, techie guy, right? So most of the techies in the group, you can see this role as a lucrative role, right? Where you are going to know, you know the basics of data science, you know what algorithms are, you know what the models are, limitations are, but your responsibility is to make sure that the end users are able to interact with the model. And this is where cloud concepts come into picture, Google Cloud, SageMaker, Azure Studio, IBM, right? IBM Watson Studio, all these things come into picture. You should be very well versed with these tools to make sure that you are deploying the model in the right way, right? To summarize, this is the skill set to role mapping. As you can see here, right? For data analyst, these are the important things: data visualization, data intuition, statistics. Software engineering, not that much. Whereas for a data scientist, right, you will see that for a data scientist, you will see that pretty much, he needs to know, he's the Jack. He's a Jack Sparrow, right? Jack of all trades, as you can see here. He is supposed to know all these things, right? Compared to that of other roles. Okay, is it clear? There's differences between all these four roles. Yeah, data scientist is different from machine learning engineer because data scientist is generally not given the responsibility for deploying the model. Yeah, that is generally not his headache. Whereas machine learning engineer, 80% of his evaluation criteria will be how well did he deploy the model. Make sure that the model is available, like creating APIs for your machine learning model, integrating that with your application, right? Those kind of things are the predominant stuff that a machine learning engineer does. Whereas data scientist is more worried about, am I building the right stacked model? Am I using the right boosting model or not? Right? Is decision tree better than logistic regression? Naive Bayes should I be using Naive Bayes or KNN? Those are the kind of questions that data scientist deals with. Okay, and now comes the role that many of you guys are looking at, right? People who have 18 years of experience, 15 years of experience, people who feel that now is the time to go back to coding, right? You're looking at this role, data science leader. As you can see, median salary is the highest for this particular role, right? Here, you are not going to do hands-on coding. You are not going to do deployment of models and everything. You are the person who is going to coordinate every other team member, right? You are the one who is going to pretty much decide the approach, the architecture for building a data science pipeline, right? Right, picking the right problem sets, choosing the right evaluation metrics, right? Figuring out the right deployment strategy. Those are some of the things that as a data science leader, you are supposed to do, right? And this is where majority of people who have a lot of work experience can transition to. And this is a role that is really in what you can say, there is an abundance of requirement, but there is a shortage of supply. Because not many people actually fit into this description, either because they hate mathematics, they don't really want to go back to that place, or because they are unable to see the big picture of how the entire pipeline works, right? So these are kind of questions that keep these people awake at night, right? Am I choosing the right pipeline? Am I choosing the right metrics to evaluate this machine learning model? Is it the right business case, right? The machine learning or not? Right? And apart from this role, there are also other roles like statisticians, domain experts, ethicists, reliability engineers, security. for data science. Some of things that you guys mentioned at the start of this discussion, right? Looks a bit overwhelming, isn't it? The best way to remember this in a simple manner is, again, take back the pizza example. Whenever you're looking at making a pizza, right, you need to think about first all the things that we discussed. You need to first figure out what exactly to make, what kind of pizza to make. That's exactly what a data science leader is going to tell you. Which ingredients to use, right? That's exactly what a data analyst is going to tell you. He's going to pretty much scope out, isn't it? Right? And then where to get those ingredients? That's where data engineer comes into picture. And then making the recipe, that's what a data scientist comes in. And how to serve, because the presentation matters, isn't it? How do you serve it to guests? The supply chain aspect of it. Do you actually keep it in a plate? Do you keep it in a box? Right? Do you just slice them into 12 pieces, 15 pieces? How do you want to serve them? Right? To make sure that the best possible experience is given to the end users. That's where machine learning engineer comes in. Right? So this is how all these roles come together. Isn't it beautiful how these roles come together? That's the reason why putting up a data science team is a puzzle. It's not easy to actually recruit, right? And this also gives an opportunity to transition. Now you know that there are so many roles to transition to, right? It's not just the most talked about data scientist role. Every role is important, right? Some roles are more important than other roles, but looking at the median salaries, there's not a lot of deviation, right? So that's exactly the opportunity that is in front of pretty much every one of us. Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. Now, let us look at the second step. This is probably the most important step. First step is important, no doubt about that. After the first step comes the second step. What do you think is a portfolio? What is an example of a portfolio? Portfolio, generally for us, right, we generally think it is CV, resume, right? In resume, I remember most of us keeping all those projects that we have done ever since our first job, right? So all those 10 years, whatever projects that we worked on, we just detail it out, right? CV, right? And generally speaking, that approach works for people with a lot of background and people who want to pretty much stay in the same field. That approach works, where you just detail it out, write it out, all those different projects. When it comes to data science world, right? Here, things are slightly different. As Gaurav said, right? Kaggle, GitHub projects and everything. That's exactly what we're looking at. Portfolio is nothing but public evidence, right? Public evidence of the data science skill set, right? If you think of it, if you don't have any experience in data science, particularly, you need to have a strong portfolio, because generally we do it for designers. Whenever we're hiring designers, we don't ask for the resumes. We ask for what are the projects that you have worked on so far. Right? Give us a brief introduction of what those projects are, right? That is what we actually look at. Whereas in the case of software engineer, nobody asks you to explain show me your code repository of your previous project, because that is again controversial, right? You can't just share that code repository. Whereas in the case of data science, this is all that matters, right? Nobody cares about, at least when I'm hiring data scientists, I generally don't really read too much into the programming languages, the algorithms, the concept that you have learned, certifications you have done. Those things don't matter. What matters is what kind of projects did you handle, right? That is the only thing that matters. If you see, portfolio is your ability to show potential employers what you can do, right? You can get around the work experience requirement. Basically, many of you must be having less than 2 years of work experience in the world of machine learning. How do you get around that? Because everybody asks for work experience. That was a problem for me. When I was transitioning to the role of a data scientist, right? I never did data science before for 5 years at my role at Bank of America, right? I had to show that experience. How is that possible? How can I create that experience, right? 80% interviews ask for portfolio. Pretty much, that's exactly how hiring happens in US. They ask for what kind of projects did you do, right? I was able to make the transition because at ISB, I worked on an analytics project, Rotten Tomatoes movie reviews, right? I did NLP and everything in around about 2014, 2015 at that point of time. And that project, once I listed that on my resume, that's when I started getting interview calls. And luckily, the person who hired me was actually looking for somebody who is well versed with NLP techniques, right? And in the interview, the entire discussion happened around this project. There's nothing else. Nobody asked me what is the difference between lasso and ridge regression. What is the difference between decision tree and random forest? Nobody asked those questions. They will ask those questions if you don't have anything interesting on your resume. If you have something interesting on your resume, right? If you have a project, something like, let us say, Uber data set. You took a Uber data set and you analyzed and you found something interesting. Or you looked at Amazon reviews and you did a fake review detection project. If you're going for interviews with Uber and Amazon, they will be interested to discuss that project, right? Because data science is one domain where you can actually start doing the same stuff that you're anyway going to do once you get the job. Right? You can start right away being a Uber data scientist even before you become a Uber data scientist. That's the biggest advantage with portfolio, right? And that's where Kaggle competitions, GitHub links come into picture. That's where Jupyter is so popular, because as an interviewer, I want to understand why you did what you did, right? Why did you take that decision? Why did you choose this algorithm or another algorithm? Right? Why did you decide these features are the most important features? Why did you go for ROC AUC curve? Why not F1 score? Why not accuracy metric, right? So that's exactly the reason why many interviewers look for portfolio. This is the most important thing. Right? And how to create an eye-catching data science portfolio, just like this slide. First thing, avoid popular data sets. Nobody cares if you did all your machine learning model pipeline, all that stuff on Iris dataset, or Titanic dataset, or telecom churn dataset. Right? Those datasets are beaten to death by pretty much everybody who has gone through training courses and everything. Let's avoid taking those datasets. Complete a data cleaning, have diversity, just like a data science team, right? Have diversity in your project portfolio. Complete data cleaning project, right? You guys must be asking, where do I find those datasets? Go for Google datasets, search, go to Kaggle, go for data.world, right? You just need to have an interesting problem in mind. Right? Automatically, you'll do Google search and you'll automatically come across the data. That itself is a story to tell to interviewer, right? What are the challenges that you went through for gathering data? And that is interesting for me, rather than all the concepts that you know, right? Add a data storytelling project. Make sure that you are able to come up with interesting insight from that data. Take up an end-to-end project. You can even talk about deploying it into Google Cloud, maybe, right? So sharing it with your family members, a chatbot which you built, right? That you shared with family members and how they mocked it, how they liked it. You can actually tell that story, right? And participate in data science competitions. Kaggle is a great platform where you can hackathons, Analytics Vidya handles them, Topcoder handles them, right? It's very useful for you to build up that muscle, the data science muscle, right? That you can actually show off in your resume. Right, so this is the second step. Basically, you need to focus on creating an eye-catching data science portfolio. Now comes step 3, right? Which is interview. Many of you have a problem with interviews, right? Many of us, at least when I was getting into data scientist, right? Close to 20 to 25 interviews. Even now I don't know why I did not clear those interviews. And that's the state for majority of us, right? Nobody gives us feedback. At least for data scientists, nobody cares to give feedback also. But we know as models, how machine learning models improve with feedback, right? So how do we actually evaluate ourselves in a data science interview? Right? And that's exactly what we're going to look at this. The typical interview conversation happens like this. Right? You just start blabbering about the model that you built, all the technicalities. You get excited by using words like TensorFlow, Keras, convolutional neural networks, XGBoost, random forest, all these things, right? But as an interviewer, that is not what I'm looking at, right? Because anybody can use this. Anybody can build them, right? All it requires is you knowing the computation. Scikit-learn corrupted us, right? All it requires is 4 lines of code, 5 lines of code to build a machine learning model, right? What is important is you being able to keeping it simple, right? Make sure that you're not using any jargon in the interviews. Explain it in such a way that even a grandma can understand, right? So there is a famous principle, right? I think by Albert Einstein. If you cannot explain it to a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old, that means you do not understand it well, right? Keep things simple. And machine learning is generally common sense. If you take a step back and look at all the machine learning algorithms, as humans, we've been always using those techniques in our decision making. It is just that now we're using mathematics to apply it on scale. That's it. Right, so keep it simple and always focus on the how and why. Tell a story. Always tell why you think that particular concept is useful in a scenario. Let us take an example of linear regression. Right? Why do you think linear regression works? Right? How does linear regression help you? Right? And what are the scenarios where linear regression comes to rescue? Right? Explaining it in a storytelling manner, that is going to give you an edge, because as interviewers, we'll be interviewing a lot of candidates. Generally, the candidate that gets selected is the one who makes an impression. That means even after 1 hour after the discussion, I still need to remember who that candidate is. That will only happen if you give response which is slightly different. I'm not asking people to dance so that I can remember them, or sing, I can remember them. Give a response in such a way that they're memorable. They're simple, easy to understand, right? And that's exactly where your portfolio also plays a huge role, right? You can customize the portfolio based on the company that you are getting interviewed. Right? If you think that particular role is focused on NLP, do an NLP project and talk about that in the interview. Right? If it is a price optimization project, right? Go for companies like Uber, right? Companies like Amazon, where price optimization is a huge machine learning problem. Right? So these are the things that will help you sail through a data science interview. Okay, this is step 3, basically looking at how you can come through the data science. And the only way you can actually overcome this is through practice. Right? That brings us to step 4. How do I pretty much practice this? Right? How do I actually come across this? How do I overcome this data science interview? Right? Because basically you need to have some inspiration. Right? How do I trust you? So you were saying all this, that is fine, but how do I actually trust you? Right? So I told you my story. My story actually followed these 3 steps. Right? I had to actually learn them the hard way. And the other thing that you can actually do to learn quickly is looking at these success stories. Right? So here is a success story of a person who made the transition from an Android developer to a data scientist. As you can see, he was able to land his dream job by customizing his portfolio. Right? Within the organization, basically, he was trying to make the transition within the organization, right? And he was able to pretty much pick a problem within the organization, which is interesting, and do a POC, pretty much showing the results to the senior management, telling a story using the data analysis, and finally making the transition. Right? This is how you transition within your organization. If you can, there's always problems in any organization. If you can have the data at your hand, if you know the data science skills that you're learning at Upgrade, you can make the data dance to your tunes, right? And that's how you make the transition, right? And then here is another story, right? Fabio Vasquez, he's a very popular guy in the data science community. He, as you can see, he applied to close to 125 jobs before he made the transition. I applied to close to 70 jobs before I made the transition, right? And 70 jobs, 30 to 35 interviews, and so many rejections actually happen, right? And just like a machine learning model, you should always be learning from those mistakes and moving forward, right? You be active on LinkedIn, you'll be coming across so many stories, so many people, so many jobs for that matter, right? So that are going to kind of keep you in that loop, keep you in that space where you can learn each day from these people, right? And then if you see another story here, always make sure that you are never repeating the same mistake, no matter how many interviews you do. Right? If you always note down the questions, always think how you can actually come with a better answer to the answer that you've given earlier. Right? Always make sure that you're practicing it in such a way that you are actually learning it the right way, and you're able to finally make that leap. Right? It's not easy. It's going to take time. So don't get frustrated with the initial efforts being. Sometimes you might not even get an interview call. At this current point of time, that situation is pretty much going to be common for most of us. Right? The entire job industry is going to be contracted, but don't lose hope on that. Make sure that you are trying, keep on trying it. It's easy to say, hard to implement, but still that's the only way out. Right? So step 4 is basically pretty much making sure that you are active on LinkedIn, following the stories, making sure that you are getting inspiration from these people. So just to keep that effort active and moving forward. That brings us to the final step. Right? What is the one critical component that defines your success or failure? I told you already 4 steps. This 5th step is not just for career transition. It's kind of something that is important for you to actually take it forward even for the rest of your career. Be it, some of you might be interested in making the transition. Some of you might be interested in setting something on your own, right? Setting up something on your own, or maybe some of you are just learning it for the fun of it, right? Either way, based on my personal experience, this is one attribute that has pretty much separated the great data scientists, the great machine learning engineers from the good ones, right? And what is that special criteria? What is the special thing? We will see here. Do you guys know who this person is? Any guesses who this person? Veer Singh is correct. It's actually Da Vinci. Veer Singh and Ashish and Amarnath got it correct. It's actually Leonardo da Vinci. What is so special about him? Why is he so popular? Why is he so popular? I'll take all your questions. Don't worry. Within 5 minutes, I'll take all your questions. First, let us focus on this aspect. As Ashish rightly said, he is multi-talented, right? He is great at these things. He is a great inventor, great painter, great scientist, musician, cartography, geology, anatomy, literature, mathematics, right? He didn't live 300 years. He lived less than 70 years, right? And he was able to master all this. Right? What do you think helped him master all this? Do you think he had more than 24 hours compared to the rest of the contemporaries? The reason why he's so popular is because of his special trait, which is curiosity. He was curious across pretty much everything that comes into his mind. He used to keep that journal, which is a famous journal. Even now, you can actually find that online, right? Where he pretty much noted on anything and everything that incites curiosity, right? We as kids also used to have curiosity, right? But somewhere down the lane, because of so many things, we kind of given up on all this other extracurricular activities, as our parents, everybody's supposed to call them, right? They're always the Sharma Ji ka betas and everything, who we get compared to. And eventually we had to let go of all these things, right? So that's exactly what separates the great ones from the good ones, right? Don't ever take all these things as burden, right? So you too need to be curious, at least in this world of machine, because every day you see things changing. Right? Data science world, when I started in 2015, was completely different from where it is right now. Right? It is fast advancing. Even no matter what happens, right? No matter which scenario comes in the entire world, right? No matter which pandemic hits us, things are always going to move at breakneck pace, right? And you need to be curious about all these aspects in order to kind of ride that wave, right? Model deployment, AR, design thinking, domain expertise, empirical research, right? Many people try to pick one and become good at it, which is good, right? At the same time, you should have working knowledge. That's the whole point of upgrade certification program, right? You need to have just enough knowledge about all these things so that you can kind of cook the right pizza, right? With the right ingredients and everything, right? This is where the industry is also headed. If you see, this is how you can actually map your skill set. Those of you who are actually good at C, C++, you can actually transition to Python. You can focus on it easily. There are people who are good with communication skills. Maybe data insights consulting is the right approach, right? People who are good at domain experience, as I told you, data science project leader, right? Project management experience, product development experience. This is how we can map out your skill set, right? But the industry, within a couple of years, is going to move towards full stack data scientist. But right now, as I told you, full stack developers itself is hard. You're talking about full stack data scientists, but that's going to be the future. Imagine somebody who knows, who can actually roll up his sleeve, do the dirty work for gathering data, who can scope out the client requirement, who can build models, figure out the right evaluation metrics, who can build an end-to-end pipeline and also deploy the model. Who knows, who has working knowledge of majority. I'm not saying you need to know all these technologies. One technology for each phase of the entire machine learning pipeline. If you know all this, you'll always be differentiated compared to everybody else, Because many of us, due to lack of time and everything, we actually make those sacrifices, right? We decide to focus in just one technology and focus on that, right? But the one who actually knows all this is the one who is going to be the go-to employee of the future. As Michael Dell said, right? The ones who are going to make the data dance are the ones who are going to pretty much control the future, right? So that's exactly what I want you guys to focus on going forward. Right, so these are the 5 steps. Understand the different machine learning goals. To summarize what we discussed today, we looked at the importance of portfolio, right? Data science interview, how to make an impression, learn from the people, make sure that you're always part of a community, that where all of you are together preparing for interviews, together practicing, right? And together succeeding in making the transition, and be curious about everything and anything when it comes to data science and machine learning. Okay, now let me take some questions. You can use the question Q&A tab. Let me just take the questions from the start and maybe come towards the end.
So I'll also ask you the questions, Sai. If you have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A tab, because that will help us, both Sai and me, to ask the relevant questions and pick up the questions which you're asking. Brilliant. So just to start with, Sai, do you want to pick up one of the questions that are there?
Yeah, sure. Should I pick, or you can?
Yeah, I'll just start. So just broadly, for those who are a bit more experienced, I think we have a broad range of people who have joined this session, right? Now, many of them have not, they're sort of looking into machine learning, not really sure whether they should build their careers or not. Is this the right time? Those who are more experienced right now and are working in different domains, what would you say to them? Like, is it important right now for them to look at machine learning as a career?
Yep. So machine learning, if you look at it, it's more like it has already changed the way companies actually work, solve problems, right? And as long as there are problems, we're always going to look at best possible solutions, right? So think of this simple example. If you can always solve which customer should see which recommendation by using if and then conditions, right? But after a point, what happens is it becomes unmanageable. Right? You can only code it to that extent. So you can be the master coder in Java, C++, and everything, but you can only do so many if and then conditions, right? So that's where machine learning comes in. Machine learning will solve this problem in the best possible manner by building these recommendation engines, using data and everything, so that you can focus on solving even bigger problems rather than being stuck with doing a lot of hard work. You'll be allowed to do a lot of smart work using machine learning. Right? So that's where I think machine learning is going to be even more important going forward. If you're decided to do machine learning, you're in the right place. Right? That is where the entire world, industry is moving.
Yeah. So there's a particular, someone called Gaurav who's coming. He says, I have 11 years of experience in product management plus business development in BFSI, FinTech. I'm a BA mechanical, MBA in marketing and finance, and masters in digital and social media, plus of psychology. Can I jump to an artificial intelligence product manager after pursuing my PG, a program with upgrad, and what is the median salary I should expect? So basically, can he switch his career into an AI sort of PM role after doing an online program? And what is the salary he could expect for somebody of his experience?
Right. So yeah, I'll answer the first part of the question. So you can easily make the transition, right? So basically the best way to do the transition would be to showcase the portfolio, as I mentioned. You trying to be a product manager, right? So build a product, like take a recommendation engine, take a chatbot, and try to actually build it and also kind of release it, like, to your close network. Or maybe you can just start something with your friends, right? Something like a fun side project kind of thing, where you have actual feedback coming in, like using all those metrics. You can evaluate whether success or the failure of the product. Maybe you can price it, right? Try out all those interesting things. And that way you can also get hands-on experience through this 1 year of your upgrade program. Right. Coming to the second part of your question, the salary part, it depends on how you are transitioning, because if you're staying in the same industry or same organization, if you're transitioning to a role, right, you will expect a jump up, right? Let us say it depends on the organization again, maybe 10%, 15% jump. If you're looking at shifting to a totally different organization, totally different vertical, right? You might not get a 25, 30% hike. You might be getting somewhere around about, again, 15 to 8. Again, things change with this pandemic situation, right? But my point is, the first job that you get as is artificial intelligence in the artificial intelligence domain, right? That is not the job that is going to define you. It's the second job and the third job. That is where you're going to see a huge jump up in your salary. The first job, you might have to settle, right? For maybe a 10%, 15% hike. That's it. Right? Whereas the second and third, once you get enough experience, then you can combine all your 11 years of experience along with AI experience as product manager, right? That's when things will start coming together, and that's where you'll see the benefits. But always think of it as a marathon, like a long-term plan.
Very helpful. Very helpful. I'm going to take a couple more questions for the more experienced, and then we'll go to someone who's less experienced. There are many guys who are, more experienced, 9 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. They've been working in various domains. I think, if we look at the start, we had, many of our attendees are from IT domain. Now, they don't have, so to speak, relevant experience in this particular field of machine learning. Now, number one, my question would be for those sorts of, people, should they be looking at machine learning, at this point in time with how the world is moving? If yes, how do they do that? And for those who like, second question would be, if they choose not to, can they choose not to, go ahead in machine learning? What is your thoughts on both of those things?
Right. So if you choose to go for machine learning, right? So the hardest part would be to kind of sell yourself. Basically, you are coming from a lot of IT experience, right? And you'll always be seen as IIM, as I told you, right? Indian IT male, which is the predominant employee segment in this country, right? And there is huge competition in that segment, right? For you to pretty much make your mark. So that's where your portfolios play a huge role. What kind of projects you have worked on, what kind of competitions did you participate, right? What did you build? Ultimately, it boils down to one question. Are you, can I trust you to build a machine learning pipeline in my organization end to end? Do you have that experience or do you not have that experience, right? And the only way I can actually learn about that is by looking at what you have done. So that's where your resume comes into the picture. You need to refactor your resume, right? You cannot keep the resume that brought you till here, which got you to your previous job, for your next job, right? You need to actually reset the entire resume, make sure that you are highlighting the problem-solving abilities of it, domain expertise of it, communication skills, right? Machine learning as facets, right? And then highlight the projects, and you can make the transition. That is possible. And if you decide not to go for machine learning in these uncertain times, you can still go ahead and become a full stack developer, right? So you can expand your branches. Either way, the bottom line is generalists are the people the world needs right now, right? And if you are a generalist, there'll always be demand for you. But if you're a specialist, then you are kind of taking a risk. You're betting on your technology being there for another 10 years, right? Which is a huge risky bet to make.
So I think we went a bit off, I think, sorry.
Yeah, so that's our advice, basically. Okay. Make sure that you're generalist.
So what about, great. So what about, Sai, for those who are wondering, data science, machine learning, where should they go? Is it the same thing? Are they different things? If they want to start building their career, should they go for a machine learning role, or should they look at a data analyst role, data scientist? How do you sort of bifurcate for those who are both experienced and not experienced, and what should they go for?
Right. So if you are hands-on programming wise, if you're good with Python, R and everything, go for a data scientist role, right? Whereas if you're more comfortable with numbers rather than programming, go for a data analyst role. Right? If you are already doing a kind of QA kind of role or an architect kind of role, right? Then you can go for machine learning engineer role, right? So if you're really interested in the DBA side of things, you're already a DBA, and if you want to stay there, then go for data engineer role. Right, so you have pretty much whatever that you're doing, you have all these options, 5 options, right? So data engineer, data analyst, data scientist, and machine learning engineer. So you can choose which of these excites you, right? Which of these, all 4 are important, no doubt about that, right? But data scientist is generally preferred compared to the 3 roles because he's the center, right? He's like the main player of the team, right? So that's the role that people generally prefer, but all 4 are important, and you can make the transition.
Yeah. Brilliant. What about those who are also, starting their careers or between 0 to 3 or 3 to 6 years experience, and, wondering, how do I get into the machine learning, space domain? Many of these have, have not got previous experience, not studying about it currently yet, for how do they upskill themselves in this particular skill set, and how do they go about starting their careers in this?
Right. So there are various ways to actually make your presence felt. In the sense, first thing is you can actually start doing an internship, be it a paid internship or actually a free internship, where you can get that initial experience problem out of your way. Because it's always better to show 3 years, 3 months of experience compared to no experience as a fresher. Right. So internships will be the first point to start. Right. And then once you done with internship, you can always start looking at those roles that require just 1 to 3 years of experience, right? Pick a role which is niche in the sense, maybe a computer vision kind of role, maybe a reinforcement learning expert. These are the streams which experienced people might not get in that easily because they require a lot of mathematical knowledge, a lot of theoretical concepts, which these people are well versed with, right? Because they're just coming out of college, they might pick them up faster compared to experienced roles. Right, so look for these kind of niche roles, and then once you are into this niche roles, then you can always, once you have 1 2 years experience, then the entire world is opening up for you. Right, you can make the transition. But it's very important to get that first role, first job. Right, so internships is the best way to start forward.
Got it. And what are different just in terms of those who want to different sources or material, other areas online that they can read up on, like Kaggle, I think, is somewhere where people can pick up problem statements, etc. What more ways can people find online avenues to study machine learning?
Right, so there are a whole bunch of YouTube channels which are actually pretty good. StatQuest is one thing that I personally follow. Right, we also have channels like School of AI has their own bunch of YouTube channel videos. Right, so YouTube is a very good source for getting started on this, and you can also find like courses in Coursera, right, to supplement what you're learning at Upgrad, right? So those courses, you pick a problem which you think is a concept, right? And you can go deeper into that concept, maybe in Coursera or Udacity, right? So those courses are also pretty good. But again, depends on what you are looking at. Always go concept by concept, right? And sometimes for linear regression, you might understand them better through a Coursera course than a YouTube video. Right? Sometimes it's the other way around. You might understand it better from YouTube video than a Coursera course. Right? It's like you need to cherry pick. You need to do some research on your own, and it's not going to be rocket science. Right? You will actually know it yourself once you start doing the research. But there are a host of channels on YouTube which can help you.
Got it. I'm going to ask the last couple of questions. Currently with the current situation going on right now, right? Just on a note, I think most of our attendees today also have not are looking into machine learning, aren't doing any, online program or anything as such, but wondering whether they should pursue that or not. How do they upskill themselves or transition their careers? So with the current COVID situation, Sai, people are working from home, and this outcome post this COVID, will the industry stay as is? Is this the right time? Is it a good time to sort of start picking up this skill, or should people wait and see how the situation unfolds? What is your view of that?
I personally think you should start picking up this skill set. If you think of it, the example that comes to my mind is 2008. That's when the last recession happened, right? So at that time, cloud computing was a technology which actually emerged at that point of time. Many companies thought at that point of time, let us not go to cloud, right? Because it is a fairly untested technology, and many people kind of mocked it and ignored it at that point of time. And we know what happened after that, right? So it doesn't hurt to completely focus on machine learning, because that's I would say, calculated risk if you take it. That's either way. If the world comes back online, let us say where it was 6 months back, even then machine learning is still going to be useful. Even if it doesn't, you can still use machine learning to solve the problems that are preventing world from coming back to that initial state. Right. So I personally would say, based on my experience, machine learning is always going to be a huge factor, because you are the ones who are problem solvers. The very fact that you are learning machine learning means that you are good at problem solving, and world needs problem solvers going forward. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that will still be hot going forward.
Yeah. Well, I think just a final question. There are actually so many questions coming in, but right. Just I think already overshot time with you. But people who are wanting to start their careers right now into machine learning, looking at this, and I really like, not sure and wondering, they don't have prior experience, and are scared maybe this is not the right thing for them. What are your suggestions or thoughts to people who are sort of, living with that, is this the right decision? Should I pursue it or should I not? Do you have any thoughts for them?
Right. So yeah, one thing that you can actually look at is evaluate current scenario, right? Current job, right? The job prospects, the career prospects that you see, which is the current job, current technology, current role, basically, right? And if you look at MS executive, Microsoft executive, or a business analyst, so look at how the role is kind of getting treated in your organization, right? Within an organization, which kind of roles are getting a lot of importance. That itself will tell you where to actually aspire. That is one thing. And the second thing that you can actually look at is if you, what are you really interested in? Let's say, for example, 5 years down the lane, what do you want to do? Right? Do you want to crunch numbers? Do you want to write super important code, like super cool code, work on latest technologies? Or do you want to build sci-fi kind of stuff? What excites you? Accordingly, you can choose. Right. So if you look at what's happening around you and what's actually interesting you, so that you want to be the best version of yourself in the future, whichever things actually intersect these two trains of thought, go in that direction, because that's the sweet spot, right? That's where you can actually find that interesting, the passion aspect of it, and also at the same time the salary aspect of it, because you're always going to see which roles are important deemed important by the organization. Right, so that would be my suggestion. Take a mixture of these two. Right, I'm not going to say always follow your heart, always go for the most highly salaried role. Take a combination of these two things and then move forward.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks so much, Sai, for this. I think really, really insightful. Many people have found it really helpful. Just on a note for everyone, we do have sessions every Wednesdays for machine learning, 7 to 8 p.m. We have one session next week as well with Pradipta Mishra, the head of AI and ML at L&T Infotech. But today's with Sai we'll be closing with Sai. However, like I mentioned at the start, we are going to go into a 15-minute Q&A with the program manager at Upgrad, which is Madhushi. So we're just going to head into that. I saw a lot of different questions about Upgrad, and she's the best person to help answer or shed light on those questions. But thank you so much, Sai, for joining in with us. Really, really insightful, really helpful.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
All the very best.
Thanks so much, Sai. So for those who are, asking various questions about the programs with Upgrad, etc., we're just going to have a quick Q&A on that, even career counseling, which Madhushi will do. I'm just going to release a quick poll just so that we'll understand what exactly you would like us to cover in this 15-minute Q&A. You'll see a poll flashing across your screen. Just with regards to Upgrad's programs, what would you like to know? Would you like to understand the career assistance? Would you like to understand more about the content, assignments? How do you manage your schedule? How do you transition into your career? How Upgrad is going to be helping you to answer, transition your career after you pursue a program with Upgrad. So just basis that, we will start, picking up questions and answering that. So I see already a lot of people already voting in. Great to see that. Madhushi, can you hear me? I'm not sure if Madhushi can hear me.
Yeah. Hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah.
I think
Hi everyone.
Hi Madhushi. Good to see you. Just quickly, we're going to take again questions in the Q&A and the chat. Just for a note, in the chat, next week's session link to register is there. Please do sign up for that if you're interested. Anyways, I think let's kickstart the questions for what everybody wants to know. Can you see the poll right now, Madhushi? Is it visible?
Yeah, I can see it. So I think mostly people are also concerned about the career assistance that Upgrad provides.
Yes.
So I think this carries on from what Sai has mentioned very succinctly in his presentation as well. So yeah, as you know, Upgrad does provide career assistance. Now there are a number of things that comes under this. So if I'm just to talk to you about it in brief, there's something like we will have a lot of hiring partners. We have close to 300 companies that hire with us every quarter. And there will be regular hiring drives across every city in India, right? So every major city in India. So you can definitely apply for those. There's a job opportunities portal, which will give you access to job openings every quarter. So that's another thing you can look at. There's also, from the point of view of being able to, as I had mentioned, have the interviewing skills and the project expertise on your resume for that interview, that also is provided by Upgrad. So there you'll have personalized mentorship sessions with experts such as Sai. This happens every 2 weeks in a very, very small group of people. And this is something where you receive feedback feedback one-on-one from an industry mentor, and they tutor you and mentor you throughout the program. So there's something that really helps you along the way to be able to focus on your interviews at the end. There's also your resume review sessions which happen. You have your mock interview sessions with hiring managers so that you're well prepared when eventually that interview comes about. And also, if you have a particular company in mind that you want to apply for, there is support provided there too. So for example, if I was to say that you have an interview at Amazon and you want to speak to someone from Amazon, or you want to speak to an industry expert, you can have a call scheduled and they can mentor you and guide you through that so that you're well prepared for that interview. So there are a number of things that fall under our career assistance. And specifically, like if you want to prepare specifically for a role at Amazon, for example, they will provide that access to you as well, because we have a dedicated careers team that looks after all of these things. So I think from that perspective, you will be covered. We understand that in this time, you might be concerned about the career situation as well. Apart from this transitioning career after program. So the thing also is that you can speak to a number of our alumni if you want. We can connect you with them, and you can speak to them also on how they have transitioned their careers, because of course you'll see people from various different domains and various different industries that based on their career aspirations, what they want to do, and that's what the careers team works with you to help you achieve. And beyond that, I mean, you can always apply for the program. You can there is a small selection test that you would have to go through, post which you can also connect with an industry mentor, and they'd guide you on the basis of your background. What is your background? What are your career aspirations? And therefore, what decision should you take, and what sort of project should you then undertake, which are very personalized to your resume, and how when you better that. So I think that level of personalized information when you get is just increases your chances that much more of being able to put in that extra hard work and get you that job that you want. So that is something.
Would you like to just sort of shed some light on the various various programs that are available? I think there are various programs. So I think you just briefly touched upon the assistance, which is great. And everyone, if you have questions, please do add them in the chat window. I think that'll be easier for us to just sort of understand what are the questions that are coming in. So you can just shed some light on the various machine learning programs we have, Madhushi.
Right. So we have a diploma program that's for 12 months. That's with IIIT Bangalore. That will provide you a diploma from IIIT Bangalore. And this entire curriculum has been created along with the faculty there as well as experts. So you have a good blend of theoretical as well as practical hands-on knowledge. So that's something that runs for 12 months. Beyond which we have a master's degree as well, which runs for 18 months. So this includes a research and dissertation to be done post your 12 months of the diploma course. And you get a master's program from Liverpool John Moores University, UK. And we also get a diploma. So it's a dual accreditation program. Beyond which, if you want, you can always start with a shorter duration program, which is a PG certification, which you get. And I think once you start with that, you can always see if you want the benefit of that, you can continue on to a diploma. So that choice rests with you always. Another thing I think would be good to mention here is that if you are not sure whether you do want to undertake a long duration program, if you're not sure about time commitments, you can always try out the program. So we have an option right now where if you block your seat with 10,000, you can start the program, experience it for a month, and then decide if you want to go ahead or not, and then pay the balance. So that option rests with you. So yeah.
Got it. So I think, for those who are specifically understanding about the content, case studies, assignments, specifically for our machine learning programs, what is that like? What are the different case studies, assignments that you are available for people?
Right. So as Sai mentioned, it's very important for it to be on your portfolio that you've undertaken a certain number of projects, because that's what really stands out in every conversation you have with an interviewer, right? And we have about more than 10 case studies that you'll go through. These are across different domains. So from something as small as building your own chatbot to building something that can play a game with you like tic-tac-toe. And these sort of conversations really come in use when you are in that interview with that manager. It just adds that extra edge, beyond which something like a telecom churn case study, which he'd mentioned, which is archaic, You would obviously go through that because it's something that every machine learning or data scientist person has to go through as part of their learning process. But along with that, you have a number of other things that you would learn, like the Uber case study, which Sai mentioned. You would also have something like in healthcare, you'd be able to, if you were a doctor, you'd be able to diagnose, is someone actually suffering from an illness or not, using tools that you would learn in ML and AI. So from that perspective, you would have all of this hands-on knowledge from real world data sets in various domains. So regardless of where you want to apply for a job, you have that project with you on your resume to talk about. And beyond that, you also have the option of a 6 weeks capstone project. That's not an option. That's a mandatory requirement to complete the program. And in the 6 weeks capstone, you will do an in-depth problem set solving, which I think again adds to that on your resume.
Got it. I just want to shed some more light, I think, even on the back of what you said, right, in terms of the careers aspect, just in terms of what Upgrad does. So I think especially for those who are a bit more experienced, right, the mentorship, like Medushi mentioned, is a very vital part of your entire learning experience journey. Just the aspect that as soon as you are, part of the program, you are assigned an industry expert who's pretty much the same domain that, you are from, or the domain that you are choosing to, move into. So if you want to move into healthcare, Upgrad will assign you an expert who is already in the healthcare domain, who's a data scientist or machine learning expert, who's working in that. And the main aim for those 11 months where you're talking every 2 weeks with your expert is for you to sort of have that, hand holding and understanding how do you transition? What are the additional skills I need to pick up in this period? So apart from, having a very structured content and learning that you're working through, also understanding, what more should you focus on, different blogs that you could write and should write, so that 11 months later, once you finish your program, you have a much more solid, brand when you go towards or to a company. So those sorts of, the minor aspects also are very vital for your learning experience and your transition. And that's what Upgrad aims to, do through the expert mentorship sessions. And also the career. So like Medushi mentioned, 300 plus partners. So there is always jobs, floating on our career portal, which is like an in-house Naukri, and you can continuously apply, through that. And we push forward your resume if we feel you're, more adept and, fit the current role that is required. So that is going to continue, till for good, actually, because you have alumni status, you can always apply. So even 3 years down the line after you finish your program, if you feel like there's a role that fits, your profile and you want to switch, you can always apply for that additionally. So would you like to also shed some light, Medushi, on, the student experience, student mentor, and what exactly their role is, during the entire experience?
One more thing to touch upon what Sai had mentioned before I go into the student mentor side of things. Sai had mentioned also that it's very important that you, focus yourselves upon competitions and hackathons. So that's something also that Upgrad recognized and provides. So along with your basic projects that you do and the group assignments and the individual assignments that you would be doing as part of the program, you will also have hackathons, which again adds that little bit of extra on your resume and is also very important for you to be able to apply the concepts that you've learned. So that's just one aspect of the entire student learning experience, which is provided. Beyond which, if you face any problems while you're doing the program, you have a dedicated student mentor who's there to help you every step along the way. In terms of if you have any issues with your assignment, if you're having a problem with your content, you want more help, if you want more access to be able to speak to an expert or like faculty members. So they're just there to ensure that they're hand holding you throughout, so that you ensure that you definitely do complete the program. As you would see, the problem with a lot of online programs that we would think is that you don't know when you start that, okay, you started it, but what's the motivation to go ahead and push it. So that's taken care of, because along with your peer network that you have your discussion forums, there's a lot of close bonding as well, which you will see if you speak to an Upgrad alumni, you'll see that there was that network that was built up, which also I think helps you beyond when you graduate, but it also throughout the program helps you to ensure that you are studying as you would in a normal offline classroom as well.
Brilliant. I think there are, would you like to touch upon anything more, Medushi? I'll take a final few questions in the meantime.
Right. Just to let you know that there's also, like, in terms of just a few stats to give you, we do have like 50 new companies that are adding vacancies every quarter. So that's something we are actively focusing on and building through. And basically, if you talk about a batch, 30% of that batch receive transitions even before completing the program. That could be through Upgrad, that could be from their own because they identified a company they wanted to go after and Upgrad helped them through it. But this happens even before they've actually completed the program, within the final few months, because they've already performed well enough. They have all of those projects to show on their resume. So that's something that we've seen quarter on quarter with every batch that we have. And all of the, like, mostly 70% of our learners, post completion of the program definitely move into a new role that they wanted to move into. Obviously, there are some that were just doing this from the point of view of upskilling. So leaving aside that, there is that percentage of people that do get what they want out of the program. And like, if you are an active applicant and if you do apply on the job portal, as Stefan mentioned, you receive about 3 interview calls on average, which is again like something which is really good to see, because that once that diploma or degree is on your resume, you do get those callbacks.
Brilliant. And there's a question specifically that's come from Lalit. Can you see that in the chat window?
Yeah. Faculty, I'm a faculty of Department of Education. My teaching areas are education stats, educational cognitive psychology. Can you suggest for me which course is suitable for graduation, basically with relation to my application? So if you're looking at a statistical application, I think maybe data science would be more your field, purely because from an econometrics point of view as well, and a statistics point of view, there are certain tools that you would learn in the data science program, which will start you from scratch. So it will start you from Excel and then Python and then SQL, and then you can go from there. And in our current data science program, you have the ability to choose your difficulty level, if I want to present it like that, and decide how many tools you want to learn, which would be relevant from your point of view as per what you want to learn. So for something where you're talking about statistics, particularly where hypothesis testing, linear regression, and multivariate regression, all of those things come into being, then data science would be more your field. From the perspective of doing machine learning, maybe if you have prior programming experience or at least an interest in that, then maybe machine learning is what you should go through. But you can very easily check what you want to do, because you can just try and give the shortlisting, the selection test, and see how you fare. And if you're able to qualify, then maybe you are apt for a program with a higher difficulty level, which is what machine learning and AI would be.
Brilliant. I think, on that note, I think we're going to end this session. There's no more questions that's coming in.
Right.
I think you just wanted to shed some light also, Madhushi, finally, on the various, I think the Alumni Connect and Evangelist program that.
Right, yeah. So guys, we've started this recently, which is working very well. Basically, we are, if you are someone who's interested in pursuing something like machine learning or data science, you have the ability to connect with someone like Sai for a one-on-one counseling session. He'll actually, like, someone like Sai will go through your profile and understand from you where you want to go, what you want to do. So all of these questions that we're seeing here, he will personally answer those. Someone like Sai, who's an expert in his domain and understands the market knowledge as well. And that's a free counseling session, which you can avail if you do clear that, the selection process. If you clear that, then you can definitely avail that. Beyond which, if you want to talk to someone who is like your background, has gone through an upgrad program, and has either benefited from it, and what are their experiences been from the career support point of view, from the learning point of view, from the amount of time commitment required, and all of that, you can talk to someone who is of your background, from your industry, and with your WorkX level, and who's actually been through this program. You can ask them, was it worth it? Did you get what you were looking for? And all of those queries can also be answered. So this is an option that exists. You can definitely use this. Just talk to someone, and that might actually help you decide what you need to do next.
That's very helpful. So I think what I'll do as well right now is, if you would like to do that, I've just launched in a poll. You can just fill that in, and if you are interested, we can set those calls up for you accordingly. I think when will those calls happen if people opt in for this, Madhushi?
So you can choose your timing and your date of preference, and we'll try and schedule it within that time, so it's convenient for you as well.
Got it. Got it. So does anybody get an option, like will they understand who their expert they're speaking to is before the call, or how does that work?
Yeah. So we will let you know. We'll brief you about their profile as well. We'll share the LinkedIn details, so you also know who you're speaking to and where they're coming from. So you have a clue about that.
Okay. So can somebody, I think Nitin is just asking the question, like, is it possible to switch a career to machine learning after having 4 years of experience in Java, Oracle?
Yeah, that should be possible. As in, if you need to just be able to figure out what you want to do post machine learning, because machine learning is also a huge field. So do you want to get into, cybersecurity? Do you want to just go into modeling? So once you figure that out, which is something that the Upgrad team would help you with, because you will have that support from a student perspective. With that experience, it should be easy enough to then be able to break through.
Got it. And Kaustav just asked this question. I think you spoke very lightly earlier upon this 10K block amount. Like, are there any specific scholarships available for our machine learning programs?
There are scholarships available, so there is a fee waiver given, but that would be on a case by case basis. So depending on your profile, depending on your score in your test, and depending on where you are in your career, we do give out scholarships which the university provides, so that you can speak to your admissions counselor about.
Got it. Okay. And I think, for people who are wondering what should they talk about, with these industry experts, what should they talk about for an Upgrad alumni? What is the agenda, so to speak, of those calls?
So the agenda is actually, it's good for you. You can set it. So in the sense, if you just want an understanding of, okay, listen, I am in the manufacturing sector, or I am in the e-commerce domain right now, and I'm not sure if I want to stay in manufacturing, or I'm not sure how to get ahead in e-commerce, then you can just very easily just present all of your questions to the expert. And once they understand your profile, they will ask you a few questions, obviously, about your profile, what you've studied, why you want to do what you want to do, and what is your skill set currently. And then from that point of view, they would advise you. So for example, if you want to get into something very niche, which would be like something difficult like deep learning, you need to go through the first step. You need to do your ML and AI program, and then maybe do another advanced certification in deep learning, right? So that is something that only an expert would be able to guide you in, and that's only after being able to understand what you are right now able to do. And then post a program such as an ML and AI program at Upgrad, post that, when you attain those set of skills, what will you be able to do, and then how do you take it from there? So it's a full in-depth like career counseling session. So you can actually present all of the questions that you have if you're worried about the current domain that you're in, or if you're worried about the domain that you're thinking about getting into, what are your chances, and they would be able to answer all of those questions.
And is there any prerequisite in terms of, doing these calls, or can I just get on a call, somebody just get on a call straight away?
No, so you would have to be able to, get through that selection test, because on the basis of that also they'd be able to figure out that do you fit into the machine learning program, will you be able to undertake it, or is data science more applicable, or if NLP or deep learning is more applicable to you. So from that perspective, to ensure that you receive a good career counseling session, you should complete one of the shortlisting tests, and then that's when you'll figure out your own self that, okay, this is what I can do depending on this difficulty level. So that's what's required. So once you're selected, once you receive your offer letter from the university, we can schedule a call for you.
Brilliant. Great. I think on that note, we're going to end this session there. Thank you everyone for joining in. Do you have anything else you want to, just touch upon, Madhushi, or?
No, I'm good. I think like Sai covered most of it. It's just that we're here if you have any questions. As I mentioned, a career counseling session is something that I myself would be wanting to take in, because it's just going to be beneficial for me regardless of what I choose to go ahead with. So yeah.
Okay, I think I see a few more questions coming on the side. Arpit is asking, is it possible to transition into the artificial intelligence field after completing a diploma in machine learning? I have currently 6 years of experience in testing.
Yeah. So basically, if you do have experience in QA, it should be, I think as Sai's presentation also mentioned, that is something that you can actively look at. Once you complete the program, especially with your level of work experience, depending on whether you do have some sort of programming experience and how you also fare within the program, it should be possible to transition, because we have a number of people with your background who have already been students of Upgrad. So you can actually speak to them also and figure out how they've gone about it. So career counseling is for all courses or some specific. So right now we only have career counseling sessions for if you're thinking of taking up data science, or if you're thinking of taking up machine learning, or if that's basically if you're thinking about those two subjects. And yeah, that's what we're offering for now.
Great. I think on that note, Madhushi, we will close the session and end it. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We are going to have our next week will be our next session, and it's going to be a really good session. We're going to have Pradipta Mishra, who is the head of AI and ML at L&T Infotech, a very highly experienced expert, and he's worked with Upgrad in the past and a couple of sessions in the past for us as well. It's going to be really insightful. So if you're interested, I've added a link in the chat window. Just copy paste that in your browser, register, and you will get information on that for next week. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in with us today. I will see you next Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. with Pradipta Mishra live. Thank you, Madhushi.
Thank you.